Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me for this next session, Getting Your Ducks in a Row with my good friend, Judy Rough. This is such a great topic. This one is absolutely a note-taking session. So for All Access Pass members, be sure to, if you want to pause this and download your notes, get them going. You're going to go through a pretty deep process of taking a look at some of the stuff that nobody wants to look at and nobody wants to deal with, but is so important to make sure that we have our lives and all the intricate details about our lives in one place. So to make it easy and fun, I'm so excited that Judy was agreeable to be here with us today. So first, I just want to welcome you, Judy. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Kari. I think this is a passion of mine, and I'm excited to share the information.
So let me give everybody a little bit of a background about you and who you are. Judy Rough has decades of experience in vital record and document organizing. She's passionate about helping everybody get their ducks in a row, which is a phrase that means getting your life in order, getting your paperwork in order. Her user-friendly, insightful approach to helping people organize their lives' papers and plans has made her a sought-after coach, workshop leader, and speaker at national conferences. For 7 years, Judy has owned a record and document organizing firm in Arizona, California, and Colorado. And she's currently the Senior Director of Business Development and Strategy for the Society of Certified Senior Advisors, and she's held her own CSA certification since 2011. So let's just jump in here. That I suspect that the average older adult has all kinds of stuff spread out all over the place. It's hard enough to even keep track of our passwords anymore, let alone all the intricate details of our financial lives and so on. So let's just talk a little bit about, in all the years that you've spent in this area, how do you address right off the bat some of that overwhelm that your clients may come to you with?
Well, it's as we know, many people have file cabinets, and those file cabinets become a black hole, right? Everything just gets deposited, nothing ever comes out. So as years pass, we look into these file cabinets and just don't want to even cope with it. But if we take a different approach, a backwards approach, instead of thinking of this mass that we have to deal with, we want to just bite off little pieces. So this is bringing it down to basics and saying, okay, I'm only going to spend 5 minutes and I'm going to pull out just these 1 or 2 documents and keep it simple. You know, if you can't find something, you've got to move on to the next thing, because inevitably, as you go through a process, you'll find what you need. And if you don't, I can tell you how to replace it, at least in the US.
So let's start. I'd love to have you share a little story that you had shared with me about your father and how he helped to inspire you to kind of really systematize our lives. And certainly, not to be morbid, but life is a sacred gift every day. We never know. We never know one day to the next if we're still going to be here or not. And for those of us who have families, thinking about what are we leaving behind if something were to happen to us for our family and friends to take care of after we're gone. Is it going to be an easy process, or is it going to be a difficult process? Nobody wants it to be difficult. We want it to be as easy as possible. So maybe you can share that story about how your father was very aware of this from the very beginning and imprinted this upon you, and how it was really the motivation to design the program that you have.
Yes, I come from parents, my mom and dad, and then all 4 of us siblings, who are maybe a little bit obsessive compulsive in terms of organizing. So we get it genetically. But my father was a military man, and for 21 years, and everything had an order, right? A process, a timing, all of that. So it was instilled in us at very early ages that this order was important. But as I grew up and became an adult, and my father was never afraid of his mortality. He knew the inevitable, that life would end for him, or that there would be some degree of incapacity maybe late in life. And so So he set up this, he would never abandon his files, right? He had the file cabinets, but he set up what we all called in the family the red dot system. So he used to rehearse this with me regularly. I was appointed as the power of attorney and executor for my parents' estate. And so I would have to come in and he'd say, Jude, come on in into the office. And I'd sit down. And it was the same thing over and over and over again. He says, if anything happens to me, you pull the folders with the red dots. And sure enough, you pull the folder and you open the folder. And inside on that front, that front of or the back of the folder, I guess, was the instructions. Every phone number, account number, his military information, everything was there. So years later, my dad passed away at 91, and it was exactly as he stated. He took such good care of us in life, and it was so evident how beautiful a job he did after his life was over, because my sister and I, it took us 6 weeks to resolve the entire estate. And that's only because we were waiting for checks to be mailed into my mother and things like that. But everything was done. We simply pulled those red dot folders, opened them up, and there it was, every step-by-step instruction. There was no burden. You know, we had the burden of being sad that our dad had passed away, and that was enough. We didn't need any other burden, and he made sure we didn't have it.
I love that story, and I love how it reframes things to be in a more positive kind of a perspective, and something that we can get motivated to do, and actually maybe even enjoy this process, because we know when you get to the other side, there's that peace of mind. So why don't we jump into some of the prepared remarks that you have for us today to take us through this process of how do we go about getting our ducks in a row?
There are vital records and documents, I'm sure, and I don't know this for a fact, but I'm sure in every country all over the world. Minimally, I know of passports and birth certificates and things like that. So it's really important that everybody in whatever country you're in, that you're making sure that you're kind of making this analogy to what I'm going to show here, which is US-based. So when you are putting together all your records and documents, one of the things you want to do is make it clear that this is a communication device. If you did a great job of assembling all this information and never told anyone, it isn't going to benefit you at incapacity or end of life. So we want to make sure that this is set up in such a way that it benefits those either that you love or a trusted representative that you have. And you want to make it crystal clear where everything is, and if you have special instructions, you want to give those. So as Kari mentioned, getting your ducks in a row is an American expression of keeping things in order. So I want to also keep the process in your head of getting things in order in such a way that you're not overwhelming yourself. You're not going to go down a black hole and feel like you're never going to finish or get out. So you want to attempt to collect the things I'm going to direct you to, correct for accuracy, replace it if it's missing. Again, talking about communication, and you want to store safely, but give access to those trusted representatives. So first, we're going to start with identification records and documents. And basically, this states who you are. So I've just listed here, and you have this on your note-taking slides. These are some of the key things that you want to have when it comes to identifying you. And so I bolded a few of them that are really, really common in terms of birth certificates. Death certificate is not meant necessarily your death certificate, but a death certificate of someone who you're taking care of, their estate. Copies of your driver's license and lists of your passwords, and social security card, things like that. But on the bottom, I have wallet contents. And this is one of the things some people find is one of the most valuable tips. Take your wallet, go to a copy machine, and copy it front and back. or you might want to just scan it in onto your computer or some type of mobile device. But this way, if your wallet is ever lost or stolen, your purse lost or stolen, you have immediate access to all the 800 numbers, everything that you would need to quickly resolve that issue. So there are a lot of other identification records. Not all apply to everyone, but this is what you need to start to gather. So get this out of the file cabinet, and what I'm recommending is a binder system, which we'll get into later. Your contacts. So everyone probably has some type of address book, and I want you to think about this, is that if something happens to you and people had to be notified, how do they know who is in the address book? What is the relationship? So in terms of your address book or a contact list of some sort, if Jane Smith is listed with a phone number and an email address, how do I know who she is? Is she your hairdresser? Is she a distant cousin or a friend that you're very close to? Is it somebody important, or it would not necessarily need to be notified? So by making it crystal clear, what is the relationship of the people to you in your address book? So your in case of emergency contacts can also be highlighted. And a lot of cell phones allow you to do this by putting the ICE, I-C-E, in front of the name, so that in the United States anyway, this is the way that first responders can quickly discover who is important that needs to be contacted. So it's a lot of things you can do with your contacts and address book to make it crystal clear who is important to be contacted in incapacity or death. So now, of course, we all have to keep track of health records, whether healthy or ill. And it is important that we understand, here are some of the medical type of records that are vitally important. I'm going to skip to the prescription information and talk about that a little bit. But needless to say, so many of these are important, such as an advance directive. But prescription information is really key. Carrying this with you in some form, physically or electronically, is vitally important. So listing the prescription, the doctor that prescribed it, the phone number, maybe the number of the prescription, the dose that you're taking, information like that, that if you are unable to communicate, and this is in your wallet or easily accessible within a cell phone or something like that, it's really great if you had a run to the emergency room, or even if you're just going for a doctor's appointment. So again, there are many medical records that we want to keep track of, but think in terms of those that are critical for maintaining good health. Now, insurance is another area. So you want to address whether or not you have proper coverage or not, and you might want to talk to an insurance agent or insurance company about these issues. Here again is a list of possible insurance, types of insurance that you may carry. But at the bottom of the first column, it says insurance summary. And this is where you would simply list what insurances do you have and what are they for, what is the contact information for the company or individual that can, help you with this insurance if you need to adjust it in any way, or your trusted representative needs to know. So if you pass away and there are life insurance policies, this is something that many times gets away from people. They don't necessarily keep track. Life insurance policies could have been set up, when people were very, very young, and decades later, they're trying to find the policies that someone held and can't. So by having a summary, knowing exactly where they are is really helpful when you are taking care of an estate. This is one of the things that is most problematic many times when it comes to people's estates. You know, many people take care of the finances and the beneficiaries and all of that, but they don't talk about what they own. And, you know, this is something that, in my experience in business, I found causes a lot of disruption within a family after someone has passed away. They will fight over very inexpensive items, or will get into a misunderstanding about what the desire was on the part of the deceased. So by doing a home inventory and saying, you know, I want this item donated, I would like this to go to my daughter, this to go to my son, this to go to charity, this to, you know, all these different locations, something to be sold. You can also say, I don't know, or I don't care what happens to a particular item. And that's really critical for families to understand that. So any direction you can give on items that you own really can help keep a family together. Many people I've heard have a trick of putting stickers on specific items that they own and stating what they want to happen to that item. And what we found is over time, over decades, those stickers fall off, and that isn't always helpful. So the finance piece is what we'll address next. So what is your worth? And again, I was saying that this is something that a lot of people seem to take care of before some of the other categories, but you want to be crystal clear about everything concerning your finances, what's happening to it. Professionals can help guide you in this area. Because much of it can be not only confusing, but laws change regularly concerning a lot of these. So this is something where a professional can help you. But pulling together all your financial information, making it crystal clear to a trusted representative is so beneficial. This is one of the things my father did. I had every account number, beneficiary, I knew what all the bills and payments were, so everything was clearly stated. And then, of course, there's the tax side of things. And this is an area where people get really concerned about how long you keep your tax information. And according to the United States IRS guidelines, it's really 3 years plus your current tax. But there are other reasons why you need to keep things for a more extended period, and in some cases forever. And you have to know what that is, and that's where you talk to your tax attorney or someone who's well-versed in taxes. The next part leads into our estate and the legacy that we're leaving or not leaving to others. So there are a lot of situations and issues and things that we want to address about estate. But one thing I want to make crystal clear is today we have such a digital presence. And with so many things online, there is confusion and sometimes problems when it comes to who owns what in terms of the property, intellectual property or other that you have online. So writers, for example, if they've placed information online and they've checked that box that they agree to the terms of that particular location where this information lives, that may state that once it's up there, it is now the property of that company, not the property of the person who's written it. So there's a lot of controversy there, and there's been cases that are dealing with. So it's really great if you can get an executor who specializes in your digital online items. So powers of attorney and wills and all sorts of things are vitally important. I have a funny story about a friend of mine whose sister passed away, and she, you know, the thing in their family was the kids had selected the obituary photo of their mother, and all the sisters got together and were saying there was no way that their sister would want that photo publicized. So you can pick your own obituary photo. You can drive this, and you can make sure that things are the way you want them to be. There's also the element of preparedness. So when you're pulling all of these items together, you want to make sure that you really are ready for not just incapacity or death, but that you're ready for things like, unfortunately, could be a house fire or a flood or all sorts of situations. When you're traveling, it's great to have certain records and documents with you or with a trusted representative when you're away, especially if you leave the country. If you have a caregiver or you become cared for and you have a caregiver, and that person knows what it is that you want, how you want it. So there's a lot of different reasons. If you're going to the doctor and you want to make sure that you have your health history with you, your prescription drugs, everything for the visit, and you don't have to write things over and over again. So there's tons of ways to be prepared. So here are some examples for your trusted representative or agent. As I said, caregiver or your family, doctors or any other medical. Plan for pets. So many people are so close to their pets, and they want to make sure if anything happens to them that the pets are taken care of. We talked about travel. I talked about the contents of your wallet. But even emergency planning within your own home. You want to make sure that your family, they're all on the same place. Everyone knows in case there's a need for evacuation, earthquake, whatever could happen, that you just have discussed this. You've made a plan. Also within your neighborhood too, you might want to get together with neighbors and have a discussion about these things. The next piece of it is, what is important to you in terms of your memorabilia and preserving and storing memorabilia. So it's really a wonderful thing to have pictures, and we have them physically and digitally. We have video. There's so many different things that are in both the physical and digital category. And it's important to know exactly what you're going to do with those items. So I'm going to get into some quickly about some of the storage and security ways with this type of pulling together all these valuable records and documents as well as memorabilia. It can be an identity theft nightmare, so you want to protect this. So what I recommend is that taking things out of the file, putting them into a binder, into sheet protectors, each individual document, and making sure that you first are identifying that you have everything and that it's all in one place is a possibility. Everything I'm going to state here is just a suggestion. There's no prescription for everybody. You have to decide what you're comfortable with. Some people then like to take those documents, scan them in, and store them electronically. And you can do that and store it on an external drive, or you can store it on a laptop, whatever it might be. There's also many types of software out there. There's a lot of different things that you can use. And you can also do multiple ways of storage. So you have to decide the physical files or binders versus electronic computer or cloud storage. And then, do you want to do one or both or some combination? Now, security is really, really important. As I said, identity theft is something that we don't want anybody to go through. So we want to make sure that you are protected and that everything is backed up. So you don't wait for a crisis. You want to plan ahead of time. And Kari had mentioned earlier that these are things that people don't want to do, but we really have to do. And as the gift that my father gave to my family, I hope you'll give to your family. I hope you'll feel that you don't want to place the burden on them to hunt and search and try to figure out what was in your mind. But you can clearly state what you want and how you want it. So again, I know we went quickly through this, and it's so much more in depth in many ways, but it's just a bite one at a time. It's just something that we can chip away at. It is not something you have to sit down and take care of overnight. So please feel that you don't have to rush. Once you feel, I hope you feel some sense of urgency, but not so that it makes you crazy and you feel that you have to do it in a rush. It is something that, with the identification records, I think that's one of the first things. And then maybe you might want to jump to the financial and insurance things next. But you can jump around and do what you like, when you like, but start. And that's it. We are finished with the presentation, but I hope that you will consider getting started with pulling things together and selecting someone who's your trusted representative, or more than one person. Remember, you don't know what's going to happen if you select someone, and that the time in life that they're in, it might be too overwhelming for them to handle something like this. But you can select backups and then always know that it will get done, or it can get done as a team approach, as my sister and I did.
Wow, Judy, those slides were fantastic. And it is, in fact, an overwhelming idea to start from scratch and start putting all these ideas together. Yet you did such a great job in putting it together in compartments and components and segments that you can really tackle on a Sunday afternoon. You can take one of those pieces and knock it off before you go off for a walk or go off for dinner with friends, something you can accomplish. So let's say someone is sort of starting from scratch. How do you recommend we break it up to kind of go through this whole process of putting the basics together?
All right, so just take one category. So we'll go back to the ID records. And they just need to, I mean, you're right. You could put on a movie. This is not something that you can do a little multitasking and be entertained while you're doing this. So pull out some of the folders where you think some of those records are. So I would pull out my birth certificate. I would have a binder already set. I would pre-purchase sheet protectors, and those are those plastic 3-hole punch, little slot. You can stick paper into the slots, for those who don't know, and you put that and set up your binder in those categories that I gave you. So you start looking for those items. Go make the copy of the contents of your wallet. Slip those in one sheet protector, and go through just the list that I gave you on the slides. Those are the most crucial that I listed, and there are more, and you can identify too what's important within your life. So you just simply put them in place. And each Sunday for a number of weeks, I actually get people to do this in about 2 hours, about 2 hours a week for 8 weeks. So they'll get the majority of those items in the binder, in the categories. Then it's whether or not you need to do something like replace or whatever. So then get into the heavy lifting later. First, just get things pulled together. But before you do anything, you want to say, where am I going to store this? How is this going to be safe? Do I want to buy a physical safe and have it in there that's fireproof, waterproof, heat-proof, all the things that will protect that information? So it is a chip away, but there's some thinking you have to do in advance. So you need some supplies, and you need to think of the storage as you're pulling this all together.
It's great and really very straightforward. It occurs to me that this, as your father did with you, is also not a bad teachable moment, family project to do with our adult children as well. So that's probably not something they're thinking about either as they're busy in their lives, to inspire them to kind of be aware as you're moving through organizing your paperwork that they're watching and learning and being informed as these pieces are coming into place, and hopefully we can be inspirational to our kids to have them do the same thing early in life and frequently updating their materials every few years.
That's so true. And if I have time, I'd like to add just this little story with my own family. Once I created my system, adapted from my father's, I realized I set up the binders. So there were 4 people in my family, a son, daughter, my husband, myself. I set up the binders for the individual, not a family binder. And so when my children graduated college, they got their own apartments, they were really their first real career jobs, I handed them their binder. And I said, you're now in charge of your life. And they knew that over the years we had used their binder. My daughter had lost her driver's license, so we just took the binder right to the motor vehicle and got her new license. And whenever we used it, they saw people being shocked at how prepared we were. As a matter of fact, the boy in front of us who lost his license also didn't have the right documents. We waited online for 2 hours and he had to go home and come back. So it's just these little things in life during the time when you're not incapacitated and you're living fine that you have this at your fingertips. So my son and daughter now manage their own records and documents and have for a number of years. And it's nice to see that they know exactly how to get their hands on what they need.
Incredible. Well, thank you. That was such an important session, and I hope everybody enjoyed it as much as I did, and it gives you something to think about. You can certainly download the audio portion of this as well, so that if you want to take your notes on a Sunday afternoon and just listen to Judy taking you through it again, kind of crafting your own plan of how you're going to pull this together, that would be a great idea. And of course, the links will be down below here for resources and information to aid in your process of putting this together. And I just want to thank you so much, Judy, for bringing this to us today.
You're so welcome, Kari, but now I'm going to be after you and I'll get you organized.
Yes, I think so. I've got my Sunday set up now for summer vacation to get this done. So thank you for the inspiration and the outline and the organization. It makes it a much easier task with your guidance.
Thank you, Kari.
All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this session, and we will see you at the next one.